to seizures. And if you fed them MPEP, then played the loud sound that triggers seizures, they were much more like normal mice. So many fewer of them died, basically, from the seizures. So he took a video, and then the next year he presented it at the Banbury meeting. And it took years for him to publish. That's one problem. You know, and that's why the Banbury meetings are, or other meetings like that, are so good for speeding things up. Because unfortunately, the publications sometimes do take a really long time. So that year, we decided that Fraxa should spend some money on MPEP because it's extremely expensive. And so we bought a big batch, and put it in the vials and took it down to Banbury the next year and handed it out. And Tom Youngins studies flies, and he asked Mike, well, I'd like to have one of those vials. Maybe it would work in flies. Nobody knew whether flies have mGluR5 receptors. I mean, they're not humans. But he tried it. Lo and behold, if you feed MPEP, this mGluR5 drug, to Fragile X fruit flies, you rescue a behavioral learning problem. And what they do to test in flies, if they have a learning problem, one of the tests is this courtship ritual, which is very stylized in fruit flies. They do a dance, they shake a wing, they follow, and the Fragile X fruit fly males would tend to forget where they were in the sequence and just wander off. But if you fed them MPEP, they were as good as normal male fruit flies. Funny, but pretty dramatic when you think about it. Okay, so this story got stronger and stronger, and by 2004, Mark Baer was chairing the meeting that year, and he said, well, let's invite some new people. And so that year we had maybe 10 presentations on mGluR5 antagonists for Fragile X. And in the audience we had global head of neuroscience for Novartis, the chemist who developed mGluR5 antagonists, also from Novartis. This Dr. Sporin was at Novartis, but now he's leading Fragile X projects and other things at Roche. Sound familiar? Dr. Carpenter from Seaside. So Novartis and Roche started their Fragile X programs after. I don't know exactly when because they didn't tell us, but they kept coming back every year. And one year he couldn't get funding from Roche, so please, so he came back. So that's when it got really exciting. We also had people from other companies, but they didn't, Johnson & Johnson and Lilly, they didn't bite, but, Novartis and Roche did, and that was great. After one of these meetings, this publication came out. Dr. Sporin, who was the person from Roche, was one of the writers on it. And what this said is, hey, there was a drug developed in the 70s for anxiety, and it never went on the market. And the company, McNeil, they didn't know how it worked. And it got dropped along the side. Then the patent expired, and so anybody could use it or get it. And it turns out that drug is an mGluR5 antagonist. Okay, now the Novartis and Roche people had known this for years before they told us. But eventually, when this paper came out, was when everybody found out. So then we got an email out of the blue from the chief scientific officer from another company. Lots of little companies, got interested. He found it on the internet, Canavan, Fragile X, said let's, and it was Mike Snake from Neurofarm, which is British, let's develop just a single dose. It worked in principle, but if you ask the big pharma guys, why not Phenerban? You know, they'll say, well, it's just not a good drug. It only lasts 90 minutes, and it's hard to dose. And so anyway, they went back to their labs, and they developed better compounds. And they really do seem to be better compounds from what I've heard. They certainly last more than 90 minutes. Also, this drug is off patent, so there's no money in it. So that is kind of a summary of the mGluR5 story. And, you know, from the basic discovery by the Bayer lab back in 2000 through this long process of getting other labs, you know, some money and having them tested in their different ways in mice and flies, you know, to try to understand how much of Fragile X it reverses and, you know, whether it will work in everybody's hands. And nobody's saying this is the perfect cure. You know, there are parts of the brain that don't even have mGluR5 in them. So, you know, it's not going to help to have a drug that regulates mGluR5 in that part of the brain. And now here we are with clinical trials, and these ones in blue are the active, you know, large-scale trials that are going on now. I think in a way we're at something of a bottleneck because it's a rare disease, it's hard for kids to travel, you know, it's taken a lot longer for these trials to get done than anybody anticipated. So I leave, all right, so this is, if you wanted more information about other trial sites, if you have family or relatives or friends who live outside of New York and might want to know what else is out there, we're keeping this as up to date as we can, and I just got more listings from Roche, so I can put them on tomorrow, you know, so you can see where these trials are being offered. And then finally, that slide about all the targets. So, you know, what this is here's a target, you know, that you can develop a drug around. And next to it is companies that are working on drugs for that target. And so it's not all because they all want to cure Fragile X. It's because, you know, like APP might be the way you treat Alzheimer's. There are lots of other diseases that are targeted, you know, that might be treated by some of these targets. But we're working with a lot of these companies, and a lot of them want to do trials in Fragile X. So, you know, we have a bottleneck right now. We're not ready, obviously, to do all these trials. Nor are all the companies quite at that point. You know, they have to go through that whole process of testing in flies and mice and so forth, and convincing people that they really have something good. But it certainly gives me hope. So that's kind of where we are, and I'll leave it and let Alex